And here we are, folks, episode 22 of the Silly Goose Gang podcast. And tonight we're joined by Clint Emerson, Navy SEAL, the Violent Nomad, owner and operator of Escape the Wolf, and author of 100 Deadly Skills and The Right Kind of Crazy, your autobiography. So, Clint, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, especially across, a couple of oceans. So that's cool.
Yeah.
The power of social media.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
For all the bad things, there is some good things about social media.
Yeah. I think it's probably more bad than good, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Definitely. I just want to set the tone of the podcast early, Clint, and I wonder if you'd indulge me. I was reading I've been reading your book, The Right Kind of Crazy, over the last week or so, which was one of the reasons I reached out to yourself, because I thought you seem like an interesting guy. Your book reads beautifully. I love the fact you left in the sections that were redacted, like you actually left them in, which I really enjoyed, because obviously, every military book's getting redacted, but I love the fact you left the tantalising hints of what had been redacted. But I wonder if you would do us the honour of sharing with myself, Chris, and our listeners, the story of you and Eric when you joined SEAL Team 3 that involved you, Eric, a compromising position, duct tape.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the military, I would say as a whole, it used to be tradition that you could haze each other. In the U.S. military, that has unfortunately kind of gone to the wayside. And if it happens, it probably happens without anybody knowing, or else somebody will go get a lawyer and take you to court these days. But back when I was a SEAL, of course, every story starts that way, right? Yeah, you either hazed. I think hazing is great, but as long as it's used for two things, right? It's either used for celebration or for correction, right? So celebration is you're a new guy at SEAL Team 3, and your buddies want to welcome you to the group, so they haze you. Another would be you're getting married, you get hazed. It's your birthday, you get hazed. You get divorced, you're getting hazed. And then of course there's correction. And correction is a guy's not performing properly, but he's a good guy and he just needs a little bit of a boost, right? So you haze him. Or let's say even more importantly, he has a safety violation of some sort, so his weapon either kind of got out of control or he did something dangerous to himself or to others, then you haze him. And so that's really the only two big times that we would haze each other. But most of the time it was just for fun, right? So when I checked into SEAL Team 3, we were out at a shooting school in Memphis, Tennessee, just south, called Shaw's. And you do a lot of CQB and movement through buildings, and we were new guys, and it's our first trip there. And one night at the end of the day, the new guys are responsible for kind of cleaning everything up and getting everything ready for the next day. And so we're inside cleaning our weapons, and all of a sudden it's kind of like eerily quiet and no one else is around. And just as we notice that we're by ourselves, the rest of the platoon comes rolling in. They got their ninja hoods on, they got their flight suits on, and they just swarm us. And before you know it, we're stripped down butt naked. And it's December in Tennessee. And hazing always includes getting naked, right? I mean, there's just something about stripping somebody down to nothing and then exposing all their parts and then having fun with all their parts in ways that they don't like. Really, there's nothing, attractive or gay about it. It's 100% sinister. And so, anyway, before you know it, we're stripped down butt naked and taped into the 69 position, right? So now my face is in his ass and his balls and everything is right here, okay? And then my balls, my ass are in his face. So we're both taped like this. And we have this device called the mini blasting machine. Okay. And the mini blasting machine is something you wind. It's like a hand crank It's a hand cranked electrical detonator, right? So you basically you squeeze it almost like those hand exercise little things that you used to have in the 80s and the Jane Fonda days, right?
Yeah.
And it's got wires coming from it. It generates electricity, so you can hear it wind up. It's like zzz, 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 and then eventually it releases the electricity down the wires and makes things explode, right? So anyway, this thing, they taped the leads right where your ass cheeks meet your taint, right? So they got a lead and a lead. And then they do the same on him, right? And so then the guys just had fun winding these things up, and then it would shock, and it would just squeeze my face while we're, obviously being zapped with, I don't know how many. I mean, it's like a taser kind of zap, right? So makes your ass cheeks and your glutes and everything flex. And it basically like sucked our faces deeper into our buddy's ass, right? So we're both just getting slowly sucked in. And then they would, they did some other comical things. The scary part of the whole thing was all this took place. It's probably like 30 degrees outside. And that's Fahrenheit. And so then and we're right next to a swimming pool. And in the winter, swimming pools get like this plastic cover put on top, right? Well, some of these guys are getting drunk, and they were like, hey, let's throw them in the swimming pool. And we're taped together. And so if you know anything about those covers, they act like saran wrap, right? Like plastic wrap. If you put any weight into the center, the whole thing wraps up around you, and you can't really get out, especially if you're taped to some guy, right? So they started talking about throwing us in. At that point, that's when I was nervous. I was like, if these guys throw us in, we're done. We're going to die. And they grabbed us, and they went back and forth. And then they were like, just kidding. And never threw us in. But, yeah, that was like the welcome hazing to SEAL Team 3 back in the day.
I can't imagine why they're not allowed to do it these days.
Yeah, and it's we've only had like 2 or 3 SEALs die because of hazing. I don't see what the big deal is.
It's so true what you say though, that hazing is one of those things though. It helps build a group together, doesn't it? Because I know for a fact, looking at your smile on your face there, Clint, you did it to the next guys that rocked up at SEAL Team 3. Am I right?
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the thing, and one of the biggest points I pointed out in the book is that if you don't get hazed, then nobody gives 2 shits about you, right? Hazing is something that it's all about that, comrades, it's like, it's more than just welcome to the club. I mean, it's like a brotherhood. So when you haze someone, you get through it, and then everybody shakes your hand and says, welcome, it's a big deal. It's a ceremony of sorts that's really unorthodox, obviously perverted, but all in fun.
Yeah, it's a sort of, to a lesser extent, I mean, just on this podcast, I mean, me and Ali will take little shots at each other every now and again. We'll take the piss at each other. And if you don't like somebody, you don't do those things. It's something that nobody else would understand, like what you're saying. People out with that would never understand why would you do this? But you do it because it's a group thing. So yeah, it's we quite regularly, we both practice jiu-jitsu. And we always refer to it as, it's weird trying to murder your friend and then slapping hands and giving each other a cuddle and having a laugh about it. It's the same. Exactly. It's the same thing. So
there's a bond that happens when you fuck with each other over and over again. Plus, I mean, you got to have thick skin. You've got to be willing to kind of take a punishment, because let's face it, that's the least of your thick skin punishment issues that you'd ever have in your entire career is hazing. I mean, if you can't handle hazing, then you're not going to handle anything else. That's for sure.
You're probably in the wrong fucking place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was just going to say, what you said there was, I suppose right from day one you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's right. That's where that term came. It's kind of like a new saying, but it's really based on old sayings.
Yeah.
You definitely gotta be okay with being cold, wet, and sandy, like in buds. You've got to be okay with, being put in positions where you could potentially die. I mean, you just got to be okay with all of it in order to succeed in that kind of world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So something you actually did something amazing today, Clint, and you don't know about it. Ali's a fantastic reader. Ali reads all the books. I suppose as in, the SEALs, there would be the well-read guy who's very smart, and then you get the dumb guy who's really strong and could lift heavy shit. So Ali's a clever guy, and I'm the other one.
Yeah.
So I'm not a good reader. I like having books. I just don't like reading them. So I signed up to Audible, and I started this morning listening to 100 Deadly Skills when I was on the treadmill. So yeah, you did something amazing today. You got me to download Audible to listen to your book. So that's that's an amazing thing that you've achieved.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to hear. But
so yeah,
it's important to note, when you listen to the books, you're missing out on the illustrations, So it's like you got the narrative and then you got the illustration that kind of guides you to, especially with 100 Deadly Skills. It's like a troublemaking Martha Stewart kind of book, right? I mean, it's very do-it-yourself,
Yeah.
So yeah, but
So
if you listen to it, yeah, it's still good.
I may well buy it because I like that. So I have books. So I have the Art of War and the Book of Five Rings. Yeah, I have these kind of books because I like to have them. I have a record player, so I like to buy records. I don't really listen to them, but I like to have something physical because it's nice. I just don't like reading. I like, I could watch documentaries all day. I love that, but I just can't. I'm one of those people that just can't get into reading a book. So yeah, hopefully listen to it on Audible will be nearly as good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, the 100 Deadly Skill thing is really fascinating. I like the whole sort of ready for life, any situation for life. I really like that, approach to everything. Sort of, it's funny, it kind of ties into this. So I quite right, people will say, I see people in the cities, so in Scotland, Edinburgh or Glasgow, and, people will say, I got mugged. And, you see people walking down the street and they'll have earphones in, staring at their phone, and then go, I don't know how I got fucking mugged. You go, I do. You're not paying attention. You're not paying attention to anything. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to be kind of constantly. Are you when you're talking about these things? Are you thinking about? Are you constantly on edge, or are you just paying attention to everything and generally?
What's interesting is you're hitting on the biggest and most important piece, and that's awareness, right? And it gets overused, like verbally, and people always talk about situational awareness, but very rarely do they actually do it, So it's but it is the aspect that the one thing that can save your life is being aware. And I like to define awareness into really just four simple parts, and that is personal awareness, right? That's look in the mirror before you walk out the door, because usually what gets you targeted is the way you dress, the things you have on. These are the things that you can control 100%, so you might as well. So that's why being the gray person is always ideal. Wearing neutral colors, no name brands, no big logos, no expensive jewelry. Look simple, look boring. And that's personal awareness, real easy, right? Look in the mirror before you walk out the door. And then you've got cultural awareness. And Americans are horrible at this because we don't know shit about the rest of the world. But it's important if you're going to travel the globe, know what the do's and don'ts, right? Just know the simple stuff, right? If I'm going to go over to the Middle East and I'm going to wear a red shirt that says Coca-Cola across the front in white, not a good idea. Coca-Cola was started by Jews. Muslims don't like Jews. They know that. That's why Coca-Cola is not allowed in most Middle Eastern countries. And then red and white is the color of the Crusaders, as you guys know, who roamed around and killed everybody. So, it's there's do's and don'ts everywhere you go. That's cultural awareness. So personal awareness, you can control it. Cultural awareness, you can control that. And then, of course, you have what we all hear all about all the time is situational awareness. And situational is really, you can only control 50% of any equation, right? I can put my seatbelt on, I can have a full tank of gas, I can be ready to go and still get T-boned in an intersection by a guy who runs the red light. So, you've got 100%, 100%, 50%. All of that is to try and control the fourth and final piece of awareness, and that's third-party awareness. Third party is everybody looking at you. They all have the ability to scrutinize you and judge you without ever knowing you, right? We do it all the time when we're sitting in like international airports. Oh, look at that hot chick. Look at that ass. Look at this. Look at that. We notice these, we notice guys, we notice the women, and then maybe we notice the guys that might be like us, right? Maybe he's a fighter too. Maybe he's in the military. And that's what we look for. That's what we notice. And then we judge them and we scrutinize them and we do whatever we do. It's normal. So the goal is if you're controlling your personal awareness, your cultural awareness, doing the best you can with situational, then all of a sudden you've got better control over, that third party awareness, which includes bad guys, foreign intel services, and beyond. So it's really that simple. So if people just kind of started doing that, all of a sudden, your threat reduction goes down a whole lot, right? So that you don't have to worry about those threats, coming after you. Hopefully they go after the next idiot that's dressed like like he's all that and he's got all the money. That's the person they'll go after. But yeah, that's kind of, so now I don't really, to answer your question, I don't live on edge because I really take a lot of that kind of stuff into consideration now before I even walk out the door, which makes things a lot easier once you're out there, These things, obviously, I'll wear, if I'm traveling abroad or, doing whatever, then I've got long sleeves on and I just kind of keep those out. Because if there's one thing that gets me recognized is this haircut and these tattoos. So I'll wear a ball cap and, wear a long sleeve, and then all of a sudden no one knows who the hell I am anymore.
Yeah. It's it's one of the things that I find interesting, and I've had this conversation with friends before. So when I was doing a run in the Highlands, and there's a ridge that you run along that's real sketchy, and in the disclaimer for the race it says there's a possibility of death.
Yeah.
And, people were saying, why the fuck would you do that? And I was like, but because I'm in control of that. But I would never jump out of a plane because I don't feel like I'm in control of that situation. But a ridge is like, well, I'm in control. I'm 100% in control. But jumping out of a plane, I don't think I am. So the whole, what are you in control of? That kind of makes sense to me. In terms of, I'm aware of what is on this ridge, what I can grab onto and what I can put my foot on and stuff. Whereas, the other side of it, no, I can't. No, that terrifies me.
Yeah, me too. I mean, jumping on airplanes, especially when there's a time gap, it's like, what the fuck am I doing this for? Why have I been doing it? If you do it for 20 years straight, like I did, every single time you're like, okay, this, you feel like your luck is running out. Like eventually I'm going to run into a malfunction with my canopy that I'm not going to be able to fix, and I'm just going to burn in, and that's going to be over. It's kind of like if you fly on airplanes long enough, you eventually think, well, hell, I've been flying on airplanes my whole life.
Yeah.
The odds are I'm going to end up on the one that crashes sooner or later, right? If you live long enough. So.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because I remember having my last amateur boxing match, Clint. And I can remember, the guy goes and he puts the gloves on you and stuff, and then there's a fight on, so you're waiting to go in. And I can remember standing there distinctly going, why the fuck am I doing this? Why am I doing this anymore? Like I was approaching 30 and just thinking, why the fuck? This guy's 21. He really wants to hurt me. I've been around for a while. I can't wait to get a pint later. This is stupid. And it was stupid.
Yeah, I know the feeling, but that feeling is good to have because it's it keeps you in check. Yeah. I call it the new guy feeling, right? And I meant to talk about this in my book. I never got to it, but it's a great philosophy that's kind of embedded in the SEAL teams, and I don't even think the SEAL teams notice, but you heard me say new guy earlier. When you're the new guy, you're always trying to earn the respect of your peers. You're always showing up early. You're always staying late. You're like, constantly volunteering for everything. You're, just earning your way every single minute. And what's crazy is that new guy feeling never goes away when you're in the SEAL teams. Like, even when I got to the 20-year mark, I still felt like a new guy. And what it does is it keeps your ego in check. It keeps you humble. It makes sure that you're always learning, because there's always somebody smarter, faster, stronger than you. And you know that, right? And as long as you always take on that I'm the new guy mentality and philosophy, then you'll always be getting better and better for the rest of your life. But unfortunately, you get a lot of people that think, they're king shit, after several years of experience. And I'm sure we've all run into these types of guys, full of ego, all talk, and they ruin it for the rest of us. But it's important to always be the new guy, whether you're jumping out of a plane or you're about to fight someone, because you never know who that motherfucker is standing you're toe to toe with. They could be the one that just whoops your ass. But if you always have a little bit of that fear, a little bit of that anxiety, man, it makes you so much better doing.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
In jiu-jitsu circles, we talk about it being like the white belt mentality, keeping that white belt mentality throughout, knowing that you know nothing, and just always being willing to learn and stay on your toes. And even someone that's been, I'm sure when you were 20 years in the service and the real new guys came in, they might have had stuff that you weren't aware of that you could have learned from. And it's been humble enough and to accept, you know what, I've got 20 years under my belt, but they might know shit I don't know, and being humble enough to admit that. So such an important part, not just in the military, but in life in general.
I'm with you, man. I think that's a great way to go.
I think it's not wanting to be embarrassed by a new guy. You could be a 20-year Navy SEAL and be the baddest guy in your block, but there could be a new guy who really wants to outshine the 20-year veteran. I don't want to be fucking showing up with this little shit. So, I suppose in the SEAL teams, you have to, you're surrounded by badass men. So I suppose you have to, there's always going to be somebody, who's a bit bigger, a bit stronger, whatever. I suppose I'm lucky that I have some friends who make me feel like an absolute bitch. So when it comes to whether it's lifting weights or whether it's running or swimming or cycling, you think you've done something great, and then I know a girl who can out squat me, and you think, what the fuck? But she's like, a very good power lifter, but you go, fuck, I am nothing. I need to work so much harder. So I think it's important to be surrounded by these people to make you feel like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, competition obviously breeds like advancement and moving to the next level. If you don't have that competitive spirit with each other, then and you take everything personal or serious or whatever, then you're not really getting anywhere, right?
How competitive does it get in the teams?
It's what's interesting is because everybody somewhat keeps themselves in check for an entire career. And don't get me wrong, we still have our fair share of bad apples and assholes and egomaniacs, but for the most part, guys are all pretty humble, especially, when you talk about combat, that becomes the measurement. That's the measuring stick. So it's not about push-ups and pull-ups and all that shit. It's all about when you're in the fight, are you able to, are you calm, cool, collective, and doing your job the way that you're supposed to? And, and then of course you're leveraging each other to win. So at the end of the day, when you get done with something that high risk, I mean, combat is like taking high risk to the next level. And then when it's all said and done and you come back from that one mission, not only is the camaraderie high and that competitive spirit is still going to always be there, but what's above and beyond that is the bonds that are built during that, to where like I said, the push-ups and the pull-ups don't matter anymore. It's the experience on the battlefield that takes precedence. You know, there was years, you know, before 9/11 and all that you had guys that never really did anything real world operation. And I remember when I first came in the 90s, we would go train with someone like, you know, the SAS, and those guys had all the experience. So you'd show up and yeah, we're wearing a trident in our chest and we're Navy SEALs, but we didn't have anybody in our group that had any fucking experience, right? Mm-hmm. That's what matters in this world, right? So you'd show up and you've got these hardcore, old school, some of these SAS dudes, you know, that they don't get paid shit. They had a ton of experience. They're not living like rock stars, right? They are quiet professionals. And you're like, wow, there's a lot to learn from these dudes. So immediately we were humbled. And then as time went on, you saw the transition. Everything kind of evened out, but there was still mutual respect. 10 years into battle all over the globe, and you go hang out or do a mission with your SAS buddies. Now we're all the same. Now there's a lot to share. We actually have something we can give them now. It's really cool, but experience always is the measuring stick when you're in a world of alpha males, right? I mean, that's really what matters. Not how fast you can run 4 miles or swim 2 miles or do the oak course. It really boils down to, you know, how many times you've been there, done that, and you're still alive.
Yeah. I suppose you're not in the military to do push-ups. You're in the military to win battles. And you know, what was your experience with the British guys?
The Brits, I mean, for me, they always, it's a different thinking and different strategy, right? It's always interesting and there's always something to learn. But they also are, you know, they're pretty hard dudes. You know what I mean? Like, we're kind of spoiled in the U.S. military to a certain degree, especially once you get in the SEAL teams, right? I mean, you kind of get a little bit of everything. What I think was surprising was with SAS guys, you know, it's still a little old school, it was still a little barbaric. I think I was surprised that, like, you know, their world wasn't as new as ours. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was, they had, you know, all that stands out is when you go hang out with them at the 2-2 is the green roofs that are on base there. The buildings are older. Like, I think they date back to World War II. Their gym wasn't as, like, you know, it's just different, but there's something to be respected of guys that are still kind of, you know, living and breathing in a more, you know, the old sweaty gym kind of flavor. You know, does that make sense? It's like, you know, their ranges and all their stuff wasn't as nice as ours, but the reality is you don't need nice in order to be good at something. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit to put a non-military spin on it. I picture it more as the, you know, Rocky IV. Rocky goes and trains in the snow with the wood, and then Big Dolph's with all the, you know, the electronic equipment and computers, and Rocky's just there running with bricks. And I suppose in that situation, where the Rocky and you guys are the Dolph Lundgren.
I think Brits, man, they embrace, like, that suck factor, you know, like, it's rainy and it's cold, it's fucking perfect out here, and we're like, what the fuck, we don't want to get wet. We've been tortured with water. We're like, I'll stay under here where it's warm and cozy until I need to go out there.
It's funny, we've always, you know, when you go up to the north of Scotland, they do quite a lot of training, special forces training up there. And if you get the right day or the wrong day, depending on how you want to look at it, it is fucking miserable. It's miserable. Everything's wet. It's cold. The rain comes sideways. It's just horrible. It's a horrible, horrible place. But you know, fair play to those guys. They must be tough because it is miserable as fuck when you go up there. But it's always nice to get the comparison between American guys and British guys. You know, we both have friends, military guys, who, you know, they've told us the Americans have all of the kit. You know, they have everything. But you know, your military budget's some ungodly amounts of hundreds of billions, and we have, you know, whatever, £100 or something. I don't know. But you guys have, whatever it's 800 billion. So you know, you guys would have all the best of kit.
Yeah, no, and you know, and the saying still holds true, and it kind of proves the point is that it's not the kit that makes the soldier, it's the soldier that makes the kit, right? I mean, it's like, so it really, at the end of the day, it's all about that man and his brain and his will. And as long as those, you know, those aspects are like solid, good to go, well vetted, then you're going to have a great force that is hell to be reckoned with, right? So and it doesn't matter if they've got iron sights or lasers. It really doesn't. Yeah. I mean, you know, you're still gonna. Everyone's still proficient with their iron sights, no matter what kind of technology you've got. You know, right? I mean, because that technology could break, fall apart. The batteries could die. The lens can, you know, whatever. So at the end of the day, we're all have to be proficient at the basics in order to be advanced.
Yeah. Did you do any work with any other nations? You know, other than Iraq or did you do any other guys impress you in terms of military capability?
Yeah, we did. We did a simultaneous op with the Grom, the Polish Grom. Okay. Those guys are pretty hardcore too. You know, they don't have anything and they still get the job done. But I mean, I remember one night in Kuwait before we went into Iraq for something, we hung out, we'd all hang out in the same kind of like tent city together. And we had, 55-gallon drums with a fire in it, staying warm at night. And these guys broke out, no shit, Polish sausages, as part of their rations. And we're like, what the fuck? You guys actually get Polish sausages? It's like, we get MREs, which taste like shit. You can't have a bowel movement for like 6 months after you eat one, right? These guys break out these links from Poland. We're like, oh, holy shit, yes. And we're like hanging out over a big fire on, on this rusty drum and, with sticks, with our Polish sausages. It's awesome. And they're great dudes too. But and then of course there's the Middle Eastern forces that over time you end up having to either train or work with. That that's hit and miss, man. They're either okay, and none of them. Yeah, it's strange. We take being warriors and being soldiers. And I would say the Western world takes it far more serious than I'd say anybody else. You know what I mean? Like we pride ourselves on being as badass as we can. And I've noticed with like when you get around to other, the Middle East or other portions, it's just not the same, man. They just don't take it that serious. And they have the ability, and we outfit them with all the gear and the weapons. But once again, right, it's the soldier makes the kit, not the kit makes the soldier. So you can dress them up and make them look intimidating, but most of the time they're like paper mache tigers. Yeah.
Interesting, because you think you would, I suppose, with the history of that area, you think they'd be almost very warrior-like. You've already mentioned the Crusades. The Mujahideen in the 70s, very warlike, and yet maybe is it too regimented, do you think? Is that the big issue then, Clint? It's more the regimented side of military life that they struggle with, or is it, the orders and as opposed to being a warrior?
Yeah, I'm not sure, man. I just kind of always, nothing against anyone, but I always labeled a little bit of laziness is built into their system, It's always inshallah, right? If God's will, so if we were running training and let's say 22 guys are supposed to show up, two would show up and they would show up 30 minutes late and it would be inshallah. And you're like, no, we've got shit to do today, right? We got things we need to get done. We've got a schedule. They got all these tasks that we need to teach you. You got to go get your friends, come back with all of them. I mean, it was constantly like that. So It is odd because, yeah, if you look back at history, I mean, there was times when Persia and everybody, was taking over the world, but it's strange. The organized military units. I think for them, when they're putting on a uniform and they're doing what they're doing, if it's not in the name of Allah, then it's not really mean anything, right? So you dress them up, you try and make soldiers of them, but if their faith isn't backing it, then they don't give a shit. But once their faith is behind something, then they're all in, as we know, right? I mean, they'll fly airplanes into buildings if their faith is all in.
That must be unbelievably frustrating to try and teach that to be a soldier.
Right. No, yeah, and it's not their fault. At the end of the day, it boils down to culture, and
culture,
and generations and generations of priorities and what's important and what really isn't. And it would take decades, if not a century, to finally get them up to speed with our more westernized thought processes, where for us, your job, your country, and your job and all these things become really important, and that's what matters, and everything else is second, right? I mean, so it's yeah.
Do you worry, just the way society is now, especially Western society, UK and America are very similar. Do you worry about the younger people being maybe a little bit softer and a little bit lazier? Do you worry about that for the future of the military, Clint?
Yeah, I think we've all seen it. Like, you hear about millennials, right? And here in the U.S., millennials are certainly given a hard time because it's different aspects of their life. They kind of just don't want to work. They want everything for free. They still, some of them are living at home, even though they've got, a master's degree, right? They've maxed out schooling, but they still live at home. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Old school traditional America is, you go to school, or you finish your high school, or for you guys, it's primary, right? And then you move into university, or for us, it's, you immediately go to college, and then you immediately get a job, and then you make a family, and then that's it, right? Now, what's happening now is maybe the high school, maybe the college, and the rest is kind of like, well, I'm just trying to figure things out. I want to learn more about me, and some other, I don't even know how to describe it, but you see a little bit of that. Definitely, as I was leaving the military, you would see a little bit of that in the new guys, right? This becomes the most important thing. So as soon as training is over, they're on their phones. There's no camaraderie. They're not hanging out as much as I used to with my buddies. Because when I came in, there was no internet. There was none of this stuff. So you hung out with each other. You went out and you got in fights and you just had fun. And now these guys, they don't get in fights. They don't go out to bars. They don't hang out. It's really strange, to be honest with you. It's kind of like, and if you bring it up, like, hey, let's go party, let's go do whatever, they look at you like, what? No, we'll get in trouble. We can't do that. So they're also a little more risk adverse, and it's just kind of way, it's unfortunate because society has kind of all started becoming a little, less hard and more flexible. And it's like, the way I see it is everything's a pendulum, right? So it's going to go back the other way. It's just a matter of time, right? Yeah. Time is always the biggest problem.
Yeah.
I always I was just going to say, I always think, you're talking about going out to bars and fighting and stuff. I always think one of the funniest things that can happen when you're a young man is when you're in a bar and you get into a fight and nobody gets hurt. It's just it's so much fun. The stories you can tell later on, and there was a fight and nobody gets hurt, nobody gets arrested, nothing gets damaged, but there's a fight breaks out. It's so good. It's like so much fun. Somebody gets sucker punched and somebody gets punched, and it's so much fun.
And you also learn. You learn a lot in a fight, right?
Yeah.
Environmental weapons, you're identifying them as soon as you walk in. Which environmental would be like the corner of the bar, right? I know that's where I'm going to take somebody's head and smash it. Or, then you know, okay, I can get that stool between me and that guy, and I throw that stool over. Just give me that long enough second so I can throw a cross, So, I mean, there's a lot to be learned in a bar fight too, by the way.
It's funny, Clint. The last time I was in a bar fight, Ali, you've never heard the story, Ali. This is quite funny. So we were in a nightclub with one friend, and my friend was, there's some bumping into each other, and just drunk guys, and so I was watching it, and I went, fuck, this is going to be a fight. So this guy headbutted my friend, and I had a bottle of beer or something in this hand, and I jabbed the guy, dropped him, and then I remember having my hand in his mouth like this, and I had a hand cocked ready to hit him, and then there's 3 bouncers on me, and they were obviously used to dealing with absolute assholes, so they were grabbing me and trying to drag me down the stairs. And I went, guys, just let me go and I'll walk outside. And they all said it. They all went, what? I said, no, I'm fine, man. Just let me. I'll just walk out. And they all went, oh, okay. And I just walked outside, got my mate, and went, oh well, let's get a taxi and we'll just go home. It's so much fun. But I don't do that anymore. a little tool for that, but it's so much fun.
On the point of
that, you'll get thrown in jail. I mean, it's just ridiculous now. Sorry.
Well, the thing is, you wouldn't want to hit anybody, or even get involved in the fight now, because if you hit somebody and they fall and hurt their head, oh god, it's a night in jail at worst. Fuck, I'll just stay at home and watch a movie and have a beer in the house. I don't fucking want involved in any of that shit.
That's the thing that my dad struggled with. My dad, Clint, was in the Royal Navy for 22 years. It was 1975 to 1997. And he said he saw it going through that change even back then. And he was in the Navy at the time where if someone pissed you off, you would punch them and nothing else would ever be said. And then towards the end of his career, 95, 96, 97, he was getting pulled up on captain's tables all the time because these young 18, 19-year-old guys were coming in from HMS Raleigh straight out of training, get something wrong, like you were saying, so you do the hazing, and my dad would punch them. And then they would report it to the captain, and then my dad would get put into the brig. And then when he left and went into Civvy Street, he carried that mentality with him, and he lost about his first 4 jobs in Civvy Street. I'm laughing now. But people like his supervisor would check him, and he'd be like, no, because you told me to put the stuff here. Oh, yeah, but I've changed my mind. I want it. And my dad would punch him in the face. Well, be clearer with your instructions in the future. And that was all it was. Just take a punch in the face, and I'll move the stuff for you. But obviously then they would get punched in the face and report it to the police and cause all that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it? I mean, the way I see it too is if 2 people are having an issue, it's a confrontation, they start engaging each other, then immediately you're both at fault or you're both right. There shouldn't be lawyers and police involved at that point. So it cracks me up that these days, if you lose the fight or you get injured, then you're going to go lawyer up and create a legal piece when you totally like acknowledged and wanted to be in the fight, or else why did you, just because you got your ass kicked, you go and get a lawyer? It just doesn't make sense.
Do you not think, Clint, that every man at some point in his life should take an ass whipping?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I've got a buddy who's never been in a fist fight, and I was like, I don't know if that's like. I don't think you can check. I don't think you can check the box on being a man if you've never been in a fight, like some kind of fight.
Yeah,
win or lose, you gotta be in a fight.
Everybody needs an ass whipping at some point in life. It brings you down a few levels.
It does.
It definitely does.
I like to box. Right, I'm a boxer as well, and so in my retirement here in Texas, you've got Mexicans that will kick your ass in a fucking like heartbeat, right? They're fast, their feet, their hands, everything. You're like, what the fuck? And then I'm, here I am, slow motion white guy. And, but it's the best way to just keep yourself in check is to get your ass kicked every now and then.
Did you do any competitive boxing, Clint? Did you do any amateur stuff or in the forces?
No, we we're always doing combatives, so the first 2 to 3 hours of every day in your SEAL life is, working out and combatives.
Okay.
So we kind of take whatever, as you know, if you fight long enough, it's not about the right or wrong art. It's just taking the things that work best for you, and being open-minded that, hey, there's a lot of stuff out there, and you got to be good on the ground. You got to be a good striker, and then and the reality is, if you ever find yourself, especially on an operation, where you're rolling around with someone, something's gone very wrong, right? You're not there to roll around with anybody, right? So if that happens, then something's gone wrong. But you do need to know how to handle yourself in that situation as an operator or just as a man.
Yeah. So is that where your Violent Nomad comes from then? Your Violent Nomad philosophy? Does that tie into that?
Yeah. So when I put the first 100 Deadly Skills book together, I didn't want to say Navy SEALs do this, Navy SEALs do that. All of those skills are a compilation that I feel everybody should be capable of. And that's where I came up with the Violent Nomad spirit, if you will, right? Being a Violent Nomad means I'm self-reliant, I can self-rescue, and if I'm a good person and I need to be violent, then I'm capable of violence. And so Nomad is all about being able to just survive no matter what the obstacles are in life. And then Violent, of course, is being able to flip the switch in order to either protect yourself, the people around you, your family. So yeah, and then so the 100 Deadly Skills series, there's 2 books out. The third one I'm working on is all about the fight, and so it's pretty cool, and it'll hopefully complete the series where the first book is all about like covert, clandestine ways of dealing with bad guys.
Yes.
The second book is all about different crisis situations like active shooter, natural disaster. I even have a section in there on pandemic. So who would have thought, right? And then what's been happening in the U.S. lately in the second book is all, and I understand it's happening over there too, is all the protests and riots. So there's a section in book 2 on how to deal with social unrest. So third book will be just hand-to-hand, knife, pistol, rifle, sniper rifle, and then of course just dirty tricks in order just to create enough pain so that you can get away and get yourself out of bad situations with bad people.
So yeah, so I listened to it. I watched a video that you had done on YouTube just this morning, and you were talking some presentation you were doing, and you were talking about controlling a guy's beard means you control the neck, control the spine. So you obviously have some grappling knowledge, because that's perfectly correct. So have you done some jiu-jitsu, or is it just something that you've picked up, or?
Yeah. When I was in, I guess it started, when I was a kid, I could only really do Taekwondo was like the only thing available where I grew up overseas in Saudi. And so Taekwondo was kind of like, but I was like one of those kids that knew, like, doing all this formation, stupid things to earn a belt. I'm not a belt guy. I don't give a shit, right? About like, I just want to go learn everything that works and cut all the other stuff out. And then when I was in high school, and I think it was 90, or maybe I was in my first year of college when UFC won, right? And the Gracies rolled in and Hoist fucked everybody up, right?
Yeah.
He had this weird centerline stance to draw on that outside fire so that he could come down the center and just take you to the ground and smoke you, right? And then I started looking it up, and I was looking for jiu-jitsu gyms. And so I did a little bit in college, and then once I got into the SEAL teams, then we all roll around on the mat and do different, there's guys of different levels around you that you can learn from, and that's where I kind of maintained it.
Yeah, it's I was one of the guys, Clint. So when I was boxing at my best, I was an internationalist with Scotland, and when I was at my best, probably being definitely being a little bit arrogant about boxing, fucking jiu-jitsu and wrestling and fuck all that shit.
Yeah.
And then you start to do it, and you go, okay. And then from that, you realize how stupid it is just to be able to box, because there was an idea in my head that nobody could take me down quicker than I could punch them. And then you know, the first time you grapple with a wrestler, you go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What just happened? So you realize how vulnerable you are, and you have to start again. Go, okay, I don't know anything. I'm shit. And it's amazing, like you're saying. What's the best. From every little thing that makes you the best fighter. So it's interesting. Even last year, I competed in a jiu-jitsu tournament in Amsterdam, and I got my ass kicked in the final of a big German who was a wrestler, and I still can't wrestle. So I really need to. I really need to be able to learn to wrestle. You think you're doing really well. I'm in the final, and then the big German just fucked me up and went, shit.
Yeah.
I still need to add that to my repertoire.
That's okay though, right? It makes you a better fighter, a better person. It's interesting. I just got finished for book 3. I traveled the entire United States during this pandemic. I got a van, and I went from literally coast to coast, and visited like 17 of some serious badasses here in the U.S. and said, all right, what are your top 5 skills for the discipline that they are? Some of them are blade guys, some of them are pistol, some of them are rifle, and it was really interesting to kind of see the common denominators across the board with all of these different fighters. I went to I don't know if you guys know a band called Five Finger Death Punch. So Zoltan is the guy, the guy with the bass that started the band. He's going to be in my next book because he's an avid jiu-jitsu guy. So it's kind of cool to have a rock star, right? I mean, I went to his place, and super cool, like obviously a rock star's house with Rolls Royces and Lamborghinis, but he had a room, and he's like, hey, so I do an interview, and then I did the skills with him, and so it was all just throws, right? Basic throws, and how devastating a throw can be to just end a fight, right? Mm-hmm. So taking the arts and translating it for the average person, so that if they find themselves in an issue with a bad guy on the streets, what I call the 97%. 97% of the people we would run into on the street have no fucking clue what they're doing. There's a 3% factor that, they might know what they're doing, right? And it's the person you need to be worried about. But for the most part, everyone's going to be a fucking idiot. And the other point that across the board is, if they're a professional fighter, like you guys, you're not going to go out and start a fight, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to go out and start a fight. So the guys that know what they're doing aren't going to be the ones that start the fight. It's the 97% of the fucking morons out there that are going to start the fight. And so if you just know, like for him, it was like just the throws. And I had forgotten over time just how valuable a good throw is, right? And understanding the push and the pull between two human bodies. And if the guy you're going up, the 97%, has no fucking clue, you're going to own him like that. Yeah. The same way as you as a boxer, you're going to own him in a heartbeat. And that's really the kind of stuff I wanted to draw out of these guys. But anyway, I'll go into their place, and here's the best part of the whole thing. We go in, and he's like, hey, so did you want me to like do the throws on you, or do you want me to grab one of the Gracies that's visiting this week? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I got Kion Gracie. He's living in London. He's here in Miami, or here in Vegas. Would you want him to, and I'm like, fuck yeah, bring him in. And so here's this 6'2", kind of the same lanky, freaking jiu-jitsu royalty comes walking in, and he's like 20-something years old, and he's like, hey, what's up? And I'm like, this is unreal. Rockstar, Gracie, and now they're going to fucking roll on the mat, and I get to sit here and hang out with it. It's just like fucking,
oh, man, that's cool.
Where else does that happen, right? But so the bottom line is, this next book is going to be so cool because it's given the average person exactly what they need to know to dominate the 97%. So anyway, kind of went off on a tangent, but there you go.
No, that's great.
That's what we love about this podcast. We let people go on tangents. And where else would you get a story about a Navy SEAL, a rock star, and a Gracie rolling about on the mats? Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
we love when that happens.
Too cool. So yeah, stay. Obviously keep following me because I'll be posting some cool shit here pretty soon.
Yeah, awesome, definitely. Yeah. What's one of the things that always amazes, like you're saying, I have to say that we are not professional fighters. We are just not bad, better than average, but not, we're not professional fighters, but we're all right. But when you talk about, the 97%, what's always hilarious? So you're absolutely right. Almost always, somebody that can fight doesn't want to fight because why? I don't want to fucking fight. So what's always amazing is the people who want to fight, they're probably not capable of fighting for more than a minute.
If that.
Can you fight? I mean, you've probably got, a punch, maybe 2 punches to knock me out, and you're fucked. I know I can fight for 10 minutes. So what? Are you sure? Are you sure you can win this fight? It's hilarious how how people, I always say this, and it's absolutely true. So every man thinks that he can fight, thinks that he's really good at sex, and thinks he can drive cars fast, and almost certainly can't do any of them. It's true. It's absolutely true. So it always cracks me up that when you see guys fighting, and you go, what the fuck are you doing? Like, stop. I have to say this. Sometimes when I'm rarely in a pub these days. Sometimes you do wish that somebody would start a fight with you just to see how easy it would be to fuck some, just by grabbing somebody's collar. Just by grabbing somebody's collar and bringing them down here and then just guillotining them. Oh, that was easy. And I don't think we realise, and it's talking about grabbing a collar. I know Ali's had this problem as well. There's a guy who trains with us. We normally train no gi jiu-jitsu, but we train the gi as well. And there's a guy comes who is a brown or a black in judo. I can't remember. Anyway, it's one of those guys when he grabs your collar, you just instantly. He's only a small, maybe 65 kilo, whatever that is, 150 pounds, something like that. He grabs your collar and instantly you go, oh shit. Just that like proper old judo, like fucking grab your collar and you go, holy shit. He's got me. I can't get him fucking off. You're trying to break his grip. What the fuck? It's unbelievable. These different skills that people, different skills that people have is amazing. But he grabs your collar and instantly you go, this is different. This is something else.
Yeah, amazing. I'm not getting that back.
I'm not getting that back. Take my jacket off. But yeah, I like the idea of I've seen you do quite a bit of training. So to me, Clint, a man should be able to, run reasonably far and reasonably fast, to lift some heavy stuff, be able to fight in some capacity. It seems like there's so many guys now just can't do fucking anything. It's amazing.
Yeah, or they want the shortcut, is what I've noticed.
Everybody wants the magic pill.
They want to come to a guy like me or you guys, but they never really want to go and, check all of the rungs in the ladder, or they want to know all about SEALs, but they don't want to join the military. There's a lot of that lately where it's like they just want the shortcut, they want the knowledge, but they don't want to go out and earn it,
Yeah.
And it's kind of disappointing, but there's a lot of guys like me that are out, teaching training and shooting and combatives and stuff. Make a lot of money off guys like that just want on the weekends, learn some cool shit from a cool guy. And, but at the end of the day, the scary part is they leave and they think they are truly capable. And as we all know, unless you live it and breathe it, you're really not going to be capable of it,
No, it's
easy path for anything, is it?
Do you find is this now, what you're teaching, is this going to become more and more important to young people, not just in America, worldwide? Is this, can you be regimented in learning, just how to be aware in a situation, a crowded room, just to be aware and be ready, and is this, can you see what you're doing growing massively to help especially now when you see these protests, it just seems like so many people are unprepared, have no direction, no structure in their life. It seems like what you're doing could really be beneficial through college or school or anything like that. It just seems like somebody needs to do something like what you're doing to make it people aware, capable.
Yeah, no, I think people are starting to realize. I think the pandemic, social unrest, the economy going in the fucking shitter. I mean, you got a lot of bad things going on all at the same time right now. And I think preparedness has taken on a whole new kind of feel. It's certainly become popular again. I think people want to I think they understand the importance of having, the extra cases of bottled water now in their garage, or, extra fuel out in the shed, extra food in the pantry. I think, we've all gotten lazy and used to convenience. Everything is convenient, right?
Yeah.
And, but when you're talking about your own personal security is not convenient. And if it is, then it's not secure. Yeah. So it's a balancing act between making sure you live a secure life. And also, of course, we want to take advantage of the convenient things too. But yeah, I think this is teaching people right now that, hey, having your water, your food, your first aid and medical stuff. And, and here in America, guns, bullets fucking are right there with your water. Having all of that ready, set, and then knowing how to use all of it is certainly becoming important now. I don't think it was before all this. I think people were just like, yeah, whatever. I got 911. I've got, maybe my friend can do all that stuff for me. But when the world starts to fold, your friend down the road isn't going to fucking do anything for you because they're too busy doing their own shit. So, you've got to know this stuff.
There was a great bit from Bill Burr, the comedian, American comedian, and he said, if you don't have a gun, all you're doing is collecting. Oh no, what was it? You can't fight. If you can't fight, all you're doing is collecting food for the toughest guy in the block. So you got a gun.
I made a joke at the beginning of all this on I can't remember, on some social media or something like that. I was like, I'm not raiding the grocery store because my neighbors did it for me.
I know, when this first started, kicking off over here, Clint, and the one thing, so in my head, because I do, quite a bit of running in the hills and stuff. So in my head, I went, well, I know where I can get water because I know where the streams that, I go, well, okay, so I'm fit enough and strong enough that I could fill, a 5-gallon drum and, put it on my back and bring it home. So I know where I can get water. The one thing that I was, thought about right at the beginning was I need to learn how to fucking hunt. I need to learn how to hunt, because if shit ever gets really bad and I can't hunt, what do you do? So that's something that I think I will over the next year is look. You can't hunt. I don't know about England, but certainly not in Scotland. You can't hunt with a bow and arrow, so it has to be a rifle, and there's a whole load of checks to go through to get that. But that's something that I'm going to think about, is learn how to go get a deer, because hopefully you never need it.
No.
But if you do and you don't need it, the famous I think it's Miyomata Musashi. It's better to be a gardener. A warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. Can you know what I mean? So that's something that I'm going to look at. Do you hunt?
I grew up. My dad, I'm in Texas, and in the States, Texas is kind of like its own country, if you will. We're Texans are very proud, and so hunting is hunting and guns and even my grandparents were all World War II guys, so when they came back, it was all about like preparedness. I remember my grandfather had drawers you pull open all over the house full of batteries in case the power went out. I was like, batteries fucking everywhere. I was always like, Grandpa, why you got so many batteries? Oh, you never fucking know. That's all there is to it. So generations, it's the generation gap is what's going on right now. But I think they're all learning. Like, there's no such thing as easy or an easy ride. And but hunting, I think for you, a novice, just make sure you Google where your local zoo is. You'll be good to go.
There was one of the zoos down in the south of England actually did a release of some of their animals unintentionally during the pandemic, and there was like ostriches and stuff running about the city centre because one of the generators had gone down because they weren't, with the lockdown, it wasn't getting maintained. And the generator going down, like all the ostriches, there was a couple of random. Luckily, none of the big cats or stuff got out, but there's like random ostriches running down like a city centre in England.
Wow. Yeah, I think I saw in the news something like that here in the U.S. too, where they just had to let some of them go or whatever. Probably the same reason. No one was showing up to work.
Yeah.
So let them out.
Are you guys back to normal in Texas to some extent?
Our governor here was pretty laid back, and he took a bunch of heat from the media for being laid back. But everything in Texas we didn't have like a big, we had, cases in the thousands, just like every state. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't that bad. We closed things down. We stayed at home. Things are opening. We've had a spike. It's like, I think it's to the point now where it's like, hey, we all have to figure out how to live with coronavirus among us at this point, right? I mean, we just can't sit inside forever, and you can't take every precaution. I think the magic to this would have been if they would have named it Flu X, right? We have Flu X out. It's crazy. It's different. But if you just would have called it Flu X and said we're working on a vaccine, I don't think the economy, I don't think the world would have freaked out as much, because really, when you look at the numbers now, it really is like it's a flu as far as numbers and data. It's different. Yes. It's scary. Yes. But if we just would have named it the same damn thing as what we're used to hearing, it would have prevented, I think, a lot of collapse.
I also think we could have applied your rules of awareness to it, Clint, as in happens whenever anyone's sick. You're coughing and spluttering and sneezing. I'm going to step away from you because I don't want to catch anything.
Right.
It seems relatively common sense, a bit of awareness. If I feel sick, I won't go to work for a few days because I don't want to infect my co-workers, or, if I've got 3 kids, so if the kids are ill, keep them off school for a couple of days because they're feeling a bit miserable and lousy. And then the world went absolutely. I was going to use the phrase batshit crazy, but that'd be a bad pun with COVID-19. But the world went a little bit crazy over everyone.
I think it's perfect. I think batshit crazy is the perfect thing to call it. But everyone fucking went crazy. And perfect example too is I went from coast to coast, right, over the whole month of May, and I didn't wash my hands once, and I am perfectly healthy.
I did. So when it was getting a little bit crazy here, I did. So everybody was going to the shop looking for the same things. Everybody went to the shop looking for the same things, and I went, well, okay. So let's go crazy and say we're not allowed to leave the house for a month. So I went and bought all the shit that nobody else wanted. So the local shop, I went and bought all of the flapjacks. There was some Cliff Bars. Bombay mix, because Bombay mix is extremely calorie dense, and pot noodles are calorie dense, and I went, okay, I'm going to buy 30,000 calories. That gives me 1,000 calories a day. I can live on that. And just went, cool. And then I went and made sure I had a kettlebell. I made sure I had a medicine ball so I could do workouts. And other than that, I was like, fuck it, I'm fine for a month. I'm fine. I've got the basics here.
Yeah, in America, you'd go down to the grocery store and all the toilet paper was gone, but yet the aisles of canned beans, rice were full. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Don't they realize if you don't eat, you can't shit? Like, so why are you got all this toilet paper?
The toilet paper disappeared in Scotland for some reason as well. It was, but as you say, things like the cans, dried food. you could get that up until, you know, maybe about a week into it, and then obviously stock started to drop because everyone was buying it. But first 2 days, toilet roll, poof, gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a global phenomenon. I read a report where it's a psychological thing because toilet paper somehow is connected to all of us in our childhood. And so it's one thing that if you feel like if across humans, if you feel like you can't have it or don't have it, then there's like this sanitary dirty thing going. And I don't know, man, but it seems to be definitely a global phenomenon based on something up here with all of us.
I don't know. I don't know how the toilet situation is when you're on deployment with the SEAL teams, Clint. But I have done, like I say, a lot of running, and I have lost a lot of gloves and a lot of socks. And that's all I'll say. I was not worried about toilet roll.
Yeah, I know. If you squat and you just clench it off just right, you don't even need to wipe. You know, that's the talent. Everyone needs to know how to just squeeze it. Just you know that it's anal muscle control. And if you can just chop it off, there's no dirty.
Yeah.
One white Charlie. Sorry.
One white Charlie. Oh dear.
Right.
Yeah. So it's the whole world's crazy. We're getting back to some kind of normality here, but you know, with the riots and stuff, and it's the whole world's. I think it feels like everybody needs to take a step back, a big deep breath, give somebody a cuddle, and think about what's going on, and kind of it's like start, you know, afresh, because everything seems like it just seems like everything's got together. You know, being locked up for a couple of weeks, and then everybody just goes berserk. So, is it, you know, was there much in the way of protests in Texas? Was there any real trouble?
Yeah, I mean, every major metropolitan got hit pretty good. Dallas is where I'm at, so you know, they trashed. You know, it's crazy to me because it's they end up trashing their own like worlds, and they ended up like trashing the very businesses that are owned by, you know, black professionals, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's kind of, you know, it's like, man, they did a number on themselves. I mean, they definitely did a number on a lot of businesses, regardless of race, but
yeah,
they ended up hitting a lot of their own,
own
economical worlds, you know, and it's kind of
I did see a few videos online, you know, black guys, black women who were in tears because people had looted the shops and set it on fire, and it's really heartbreaking to see somebody, and you know, they're crying, it's life savings, and why have you done this? You've done more damage by being a fucking moron than thinking about what you're doing. So now you had all the momentum on your side, you know, to stop, you know, these crazy cops, and now people are going, why are you doing this, you fucking idiot? Why you've just ruined it by being a moron. It seems crazy.
I mean, military, you know, we're pretty diversified in the military as a whole. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of what, you know, a lot of Hispanics and you know, African Americans and, you know, Filipinos. I mean, the U.S. military really is a mixing bowl of every culture, because that's what the United States is made of. And I just find it's weird because when you're in that bubble, you don't see racism. You know, you show up to boot camp, everybody gets their head shaved, everybody puts on the same uniform, and then from that point on, you're all fucking equal, whether you like it or not. And then you just move on down your career path inside the military of whatever it is you're going to do. And so I've been retired for 5 years, and to see all this stuff, I'm like, I don't know. Personally, there's a part of me that doesn't. I mean, I'm probably one of the people that black people hate because I don't get it. You know, I don't see. I saw a lot of black people in the military advance to the highest levels. I didn't see them get, you know, knocked down or have issues making rank. My personal experience is if you work hard, especially in America, you will get it back in return. You really will. I mean, if you work your ass off, you will get it back in return, if not fourfold. You know what I mean? So it's just it's all new for me. You know, in the military, we're probably a little sheltered, but now like the civilian world, I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
I struggled with that transition as well for a while, the military to civilian world, and realised that, as you say, the rules in the military world sometimes don't apply in the civilian, and none of it quite makes sense for the first few years. Yeah,
you're right. The transitioning can be difficult if you're not flexible enough. Really, is what it boils down to.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know we're cracking on now with time. One thing that I want to, it's just interesting. You did some work in the NSA, Clint.
Yeah. So about halfway through my career, I went and worked with those guys, and that's where you get to see like some of the most superior technology, that you can think of. I mean, take any spy movie or anything you've ever watched that involves the NSA, and you can probably multiply it by 1,000, if not 1,000,000, and that would be the real capability, right? I mean, it's scary, like scary fucking cool shit. And so being exposed to, and I was only exposed to a very small portion of the capabilities there, but it's an incredible place. I mean, it's like 7 or 10 times bigger than the CIA, as far as the workforce and their capabilities and signature around the globe. It really is pretty fascinating and cool, and it's all very, very techie, geeky stuff. But I kind of like that kind of stuff. So it was a good time to be there as well. That was still in the 2005, 2006, 2007 timeframe. So there was a lot of stuff going on around the globe that I got part of being with them.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
There's one thing that you mentioned in your book I'd just like to touch on just before we sort of start wrapping this up, is the chapter where, and again, I don't know how much tongue-in-cheek it was or how serious you were, but the bit about the assassin test that you write about. I mentioned it.
Fucking what? An assassin test?
Yeah, because obviously the military cannot do assassinations, and you make that very clear in your book, just for anyone that's listening on the outside. Clint does make that very clear. But you had this incredible test, because you said that an assassin needs to have like nerves of steel, cold blood, the ability to just deal with something and move straight on. Just if you're happy to share with the guys that are listening, and obviously we'll link it into the notes. What were your tests to see if someone would be a good assassin?
Oh, you're gonna make me cover that? Okay. So yeah, during the last part of my time, last couple of years, that's where I kind of reveal the Violent Nomad was a code name that I had personally given to this program that I was trying to sell, right? I was like, here I am, I'm at the tip of the spear in the special operations world. And if there's any place that I could make this come to life, it's, at that place. And so I put together the Violent Nomad program, and it had a screening process. It had a training pipeline. It was based on a naked warrior concept, meaning you can take an operator, put him through training, and on the back end of training, he comes out as an operative. And better than that, he becomes, a no-shit assassin. But he's got the education to where he isn't relying on shiny black boxes and cool little devices. He can do it all by going overseas, going to any souk or a supermarket. He can buy all the stuff he needs, put it all together, and still complete the mission, right? So I put years, and a lot of this was based on my own experience going overseas and working alone, that I was like, wow, I'm getting so close to these bad guys. Why don't I just fucking kill them while I'm here? But we're not allowed to do that, you know? So we would do these other things where they still end up dead, but you spent gazillions more money to do it when I could have just put a 9mm bullet in the motherfucker's head. You know what I mean? So anyway, I build out the pipeline, build out all this stuff, and then I'd go to try and sell it to my leadership, and they fucking looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, what the no, get the fuck out of here, right? And that was basically the answer. But the thing they thought was crazy was the assessment that you're alluding to. So the assessment would have happened down at probably somewhere around Fort Bragg, where they had the Special Operations Medical School. And in the Special Medical in the Special Operations Medical School, which I went through, we do everything on it's called live tissue, which is goats and pigs, you know, and you practice true life-saving techniques on live animals. Their anatomy is pretty close to ours, believe it or not. So you can do a lot of the procedures, and then the next time, if you have to do it on a human casualty, then of course you'll probably do it correctly and probably save a life, right? So it's good training, it's good stuff. So knowing that they have goats and all this stuff, I was like, well, hell, the assessment would be you come in, business casual, you do an interview with someone, right? Hey, what's your name? Hey, I'm Clint. Okay, da-da-da-da-da. Nice and calm, ask a bunch of questions. Some of them may be stress-oriented, normal interview. And then they go into the next room. In the next room, there's a goat and a hammer. Okay? You're not coming out until the goat's dead, right? And then as soon as you're done with that, then you go into another room, and it's another interview. Hi, how are you today? Oh, I'm good. So what's your name? Well, my name is Clint, blah, 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 blah. And you go through that interview. And then you go to the next room. And the next room is a hammer and a kitten. And then you're not coming out until it's dead, and then you go. So the intent is you really do need like a highly functional sociopath with zero emotions so that you get a guy or a gal or whatever that can keep their composure no matter what they've done before or what they're about to do, right? And so there was one little piece in there that, you know, they were like, yeah, I think it's time for you to retire. And so I briefly described that in the book, and I was like, man, I thought it would be kind of cool, but, you know, not everybody's like me.
It's a tremendous chapter. I highly recommend it to anyone that's listening. The book and the chapter is, as I say, I couldn't work out when I was reading it. I was like, is this tongue-in-cheek? Is it serious? I'm going to have to ask the man. So
you never know, but that's what I'm saying here today.
I have to say, I am extremely happy that men like you exist, Clint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll start winding up. We've taken up, 8 minutes of your time, Clint. You've been absolutely gracious. You've been a great guest to have on. Just for as we wind it down, for anyone that's looking for you on social media, wants to know a bit more about you, where can they look you up? Where can they find you?
Oh yeah, you can go to ClintEmerson.com and you see my whole ecosystem of businesses and stuff I've got going on. Or just, 100 Deadly Skills is my handle for on all my social media. And everybody be on the lookout for the next 100 Deadly Skills book. This one is going to be phenomenal, as I mentioned, man.
I'll buy one of those to look at. One thing I was going to ask you, Clint, is do you have any 100 Deadly Skills merch that I could buy? Do you have any T-shirts, 100 Deadly Skills T-shirts, or anything like that?
Oh yeah, if you go to violentnomad.com, now you know the real meaning of the Violent Nomad, but go to violentnomad.com and you've got all kinds of apparel and stuff there.
Cool. I'll go and buy a T-shirt because I like to have cool T-shirts to work out in. So I'll get one of those. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. It was great fun. It's always nice to speak to military men. And yeah, we we may speak to you again at some point in the future if you would humor us. So yeah.
Yeah, well, hey, I appreciate you guys taking the time out, letting me plug some things, tell some good stories. I had a great time, and I would love to get on here again with you guys in the future. So stay safe out there with all the craziness, and be strong.
Thanks, Clint. Episode 22, Silly Goose Gang with Clint Emerson, is in the can, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.